I wanted to do a little video today, so I got everything ready, and I wanted to talk about what happens at the end of the year. You know, honey's over for me here. I mean, we've been out of the honey at the end of the summer, and the bees have just been gathering what food and stuff they could get in the hive to get themselves prepared for the winter, where there's not as much going on. They're just trying to stay alive and get ready for spring. So our February will come around, and that'll be our first big flow of anything, bringing in stuff in February. So September, October is the time for me that I do my last mite checks. I try to have them done by mid-October, and that's just for me. It may not be the same in your area, but for me, it's starting to get chilly. We've been down in the 30s at night for the last week, so it's starting to get cold. They're staying in early in the morning. They don't come out till a little bit later, till it gets above 50. So, you know, right now we're just in the mid 70s, which is really warm for the past week. It's been in the low 70s, high 60s. So it's getting colder for them, less things out for them to bring in. But what we need to do to help them is we need to make sure that they stay healthy going into the winter, and then the winter bees can get them through till we get to February, to spring. So we're not far off. I mean, it's just a few more months down the road, and we'll be talking about what we're doing to build up our colonies. But the Varroa mite is one of the things that we need to help our bees with. So the Varroa mite, or the Varroa destructor, is a parasite, and it harms the bees. It harms the colony. It just tears it apart. It's bad. They face what they feed on. What the Varroa mite feeds on is they're feeding on the body fluid, the fat bodies of the adult bees. Mites also wait for right before a cell gets capped with the egg, and it goes to a larva, and right before it gets capped, the Varroa go in. They feed on that larva or that pupa, and that's how they get strong and they grow. They multiply. So you get a couple go in, and then you get 3, 4 go in, you get 5 or 6 come out. So they're multiplying in there, and then it damages that pupa. If it emerges, it's going to be deformed. So when you start having that happen, your colony gets weak, and that's what we need to help them with. Okay, we need to make sure that that we do this, because if we leave the hives untreated and you're not treating them, and it can kill that hive. And if it doesn't kill it, it's going to make it really weak. It's going to make it harder for that hive to survive, because they're just not going to have the resources. If the bees aren't healthy or the bees are deformed, they may not even be able to fly. They can deform their wings. So that poses a huge problem to the colony. Monitoring the bees is one of the ways that we help our bees to stay healthy. And what I do when I'm monitoring the bees, when you're trying to figure out how many mites you have in a hive, what I use is a little bucket like this, and I'll bring a gallon of water with me. You don't have to have a gallon. I just use a gallon jug because it's easy to carry on my cart. But I will take one of these little bowl from your kitchen. You can use a little wash tub. It doesn't matter what you do, but you're going to find the frames in your hive without a queen on it. Make sure that your queen's not in there. If you can cage your queen or trap your queen, or where she is the best, because you don't want to put her in what I use, a sugar wash. You don't want to put her in the sugar wash. I don't want to damage her or hurt her. But I will take the frames in my hive that have the brood on it. So I got my nurse bees and the brood all on that frame, and usually there's a bunch of bees on it, and I will shake bees. So I'll put my bowl on top of my hive with the open top with the frames, and I will shake a couple of frames down into this bowl, and then I'll pop it down so I get them all in the bottom of the bowl. And after I get them in the bowl, I'm going to take a jar. This was an old peanut butter jar, and I just cut the lid around, left myself about 1/4 of an inch lip around the edge, and then this is 1/8 inch hardware cloth, and that doesn't let the bees out. but it lets all the mite and the sugar out when I get done with my wash and I want to do my count. And then on the bottom here, I just filled this with 1/2 of a cup of water, and I made my mark with a Sharpie all the way around it, so I know what a 1/2 a cup is, because I want to get a 1/2 a cup of bees in this container, because that's about 300 bees. Now, I'll take these bees and either I can pour them in like that, or if you've got a big enough bowl, you can scoop them like that, and you just fill it to the line. You don't want to go way over the line, but you want to get it to the line, so I know I've got about 300 bees. Now, after you get your bees in there, you can either do it before you put the bees in there, or you can do it after you put the bees in there, as long as you don't get a bunch of them out. But I put 2 tablespoons of 10X powdered sugar in the jar with the bees, and I put the lid back on it. Once I get them in there, I just sit and roll it around. And if I do any shaking, it's just real easy. I don't want to kill these bees. If you don't mind killing bees, if you could do a 1/2 a cup like that, and through this lid right here, pour isopropyl alcohol. So pour this in on top of them. As soon as that alcohol hits the bees, it's going to kill them. At that point, you can shake them as vigorously as you want to shake them, because obviously if they're dead, it ain't going to bother them. But I prefer to do the sugar. I mean, I know some people like sugar, some people like the alcohol. It doesn't matter to me. I've done it both ways. Both ways work. But the sugar to me is easier, because I'm just not killing the bees. I know 300 bees is not that big amount of bees in a hive, but I just want to keep as many as I can keep. So, and doing it as friendly to the bees as possible is with powdered sugar. So I'll roll it around about 4 or 5 minutes. I just sit there and roll it around. Now I know it probably aggravates them, but that sugar allows the mites to be released, because they can't hang on with that sugar. So if you shake it a little bit and you roll them around, and then before I dump them, I just set my sugar wash jar over, and I will pour, it don't matter, a 1/2 inch of water, it don't matter. So I say you don't need a gallon. I just bring a gallon jug because it's easy, and depending on how many hives you need to do. But I will take and I will fill the bottom of this bowl 1/2 inch or so with water. Now by doing that, I'm able to take and shake the bees. So now I'm going to shake them a little bit, not shake them up and down real hard, but I'm just going to shake them until I get all that powdered sugar out. And you're sitting there shaking and shaking and shaking, and you want to shake them like this a little bit for 2 or 3 minutes. You want to get as many of the mites out that you can. Okay, I know some of them ain't going to come out, but you want to get as many as you can. Now, the reason I do that in water is the powdered sugar dissolves when it hits the water. And now all I'm looking for is the mites. They're a brownish red color, and you want to count those mites. Okay, so you just did 1 hive, and you're going to count the mites in that 1 hive. If I've got 300 bees, I need to stay around 3%. Say spring, in summer, I want to stay around 3% or less. Obviously, you want as few as you can have in there, but 3% is a threshold, and that's what I try to go by. And I will get all that, count them. I got 3%. 3% of 300 should be 9, I believe. My math is wrong. Somebody put in there what it is, but I think it's 9. 9 bees, that's what I do it by. So I've got 9 mites in there. Then I should be at my threshold. So that's fine in the spring. That's fine in the summer for me. When I get to fall, I do the exact same thing in mid-September. Okay, so in mid-September, I'm doing that. I will shake them, do all the same things, and I'll count the mites. If I've got 3% mites in there, if I've got 2% mites in there, I'm going to treat my mite. I'm going to treat in the fall. I want to get to 0% mites if possible, so I can get through the winter as healthy as possible. So by seeing how many mites I've got, and I start my treatment will be once a week. So like for me, this year, I did my first treatment on a Wednesday. So every Wednesday for 3 Wednesdays, I will treat. Okay, so that covers your broods, that covers the cycle of from egg to emerging. Okay. Now, that should catch the mites that's on the bees in the hive. That should catch the mites on the bees in the cells that are not covered yet, because I use oxalic acid, and oxalic acid doesn't go through the covered cell. Okay, so I want to catch it while they're open. So that's that 21 days. I can catch the cells, all the cells that I can open, and then what bees you're getting, the foragers coming in and out from other hives where they get mites on them. You may not catch, you may have a couple of bees that are always out. They're never in there when you come in, but to treat, but you're trying to catch all the bees that you can. And in that 21 days is the best you can do. That's the best way to do it. So that's how I'll go through counting my mites and seeing how many I've got in there. Then I'm going to use oxalic acid. And the way I do it is I made my own little scooper. Got a little skull and crossbones on there. It says oxalic acid, but that's a 1 teaspoon scooper that I just put together. So I will get, that's 1 teaspoon right there. Okay, and I'll dump that in my pan. So for my pan, I use one of these. Okay, so it's a little bitty heating pan. So I'll dump it in that pan while it is cool. I don't want this to do this when it's hot. If it's hot, it'll start to evaporate, and I don't want it to evaporate without it being inside my hive. I don't want to breathe these fumes in. They're not good for you. So you don't want to breathe them in. So along with having some form of scoop to get you a teaspoon, and your pan or whatever you're using, there's all kinds of things you can Google and find all kinds of things. This is, to me, was the cheapest option for me, and I love all cheap stuff. But I'll use this, but you need to make sure you have a respirator that you can put on your face so you can not breathe these fumes in. I try to stay away from them and not worry about that, but you need to be protected when you're doing this. But I'll put, you need a 1/2 teaspoon per hive body. Now, I use a medium super. I don't use deep brood boxes. Everything that I have, if the honey super, brood boxes, everything's the same. So I can interchange anything I need to without buying extra stuff. So mediums, I use a 1/2 teaspoon of oxalic acid per. Most of the time I've got 2. And then I will put a teaspoon in my pan. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and stick it inside the hive. Okay, now notice for mine, I've got an entrance reducer on mine for this one. This is one that I'm just using to show, but it's got an entrance reducer on it. So that way it covers good. I can treat this and let it, and not worry about having to cover up an extra large gap from not having a reducer. But what I do is I'll drive my lawnmower out here. Got a 12-volt battery on it. That's what I need. And I'll hook my end of these up. So I always put the black cable to my negative, and then I don't hook my positive up yet till I get it in the hive, and then I'll hook my positive up, and that starts heating up my pan. I will let it go for 3 minutes. I want to make sure that everything on there gets evaporated and that it's into the hive. Okay, and then after my 3 minutes, I will take the positive off of the battery, and then I will wait 20-30 seconds, and then I will easily slide this back out. Now remember, this pan's still going to be hot, but you need to be easy bringing it out. And then that's what I do to treat my bees. And that was one treatment. Okay, now if I don't have an entrance reducer and this gap is open, right, I've got an extra gap that's open, because I don't have a reducer on my hive. I'm going to take, this is just a t-shirt. I would take a t-shirt and I would cover the front entrance. I'd put the pan in, I would cover it so no bees can get in or out, and then I'm going to hook it up to the battery, and then I'm going to go from there. Okay, and then once it's all done, I will pull the shirt off or the towel off, whatever you want to use, and then I'm going to pull the pan out of the hive. Okay, so that's how I treat for one. Okay, so remember, you're trying to keep your mites down as low as possible. Okay, you know there probably still going to be some in there, but I want it to be as low as possible to get my bees through the winter. And that's what I like to do, and that's how I treat my hives. It has worked for me. The first 2 years that I got into beekeeping, the one thing I struggled with was I could get them all from the spring doing whatever they needed to do. They would build up, and then I would try to keep them fed, you know, going into the winter, make sure they had enough stores, and then I'd try to get them out in the wintertime. By the time they got to the spring, I would have just a few in there. They wouldn't be much at all, and then they would die. I had struggled keeping them through the winter. And then everything changed for me with making sure that the food was right. And now I always keep emergency food on top of that hive for the winter. If they use it, they do. If they don't, that's fine. So what? I just put it in a bag. I use the sugar that I put in there. I'll dissolve it for feed when I need to feed, or any new hives that I start. I can use that sugar to get them going, to building comb. So it's not going to go to waste, and if they need it, they've got it. But treating for mites and making sure they're healthy has helped me as well. So I haven't lost any hives through the winter with making sure they're treated, and making sure I've got emergency sugar on top. I'm going to try to do a video about how I make my emergency sugar. You can go online and find a bunch of different recipes, but I'm going to try to go on and show you how I do it. I just make it into bricks that I can break up and make my own little feeders. So I'll show you all that in a video later on, getting ready hopefully for the winter, in case you want to do some of the stuff I do. Thanks for watching the video. Like, subscribe, and I'll try to put out another video about the winter feed and my little feeder that I make that's super easy and cheap to make. And a lot of people have this stuff just laying around your house. So we'll just talk to you later. See ya.